Hello, welcome to episode 3 of a northener in Cornwall in search of King Arthur and a decent pint of bitter. Hope everyone is well. Hope you've all had a good week. I still in Cornwall, still alive, still trying to blend in like a chameleon at a disco. You know, when I first moved here from Wigan, I thought by episode 3 I'd be like fully integrated, you know, like one of those glossy property show people who buys a cottage and suddenly starts using words like coastal vistas and artisan. You know, I had visions of me walking down the high street being hailed by locals like a returning war hero. Paul, over here, mate. Fancy a pint? Instead, I'm mostly going, oh, you're still here then? See, Tracy reckons it's because I don't say alright in that Cornish lilting way. I just kind of bark, alright? Like a car mechanic who just spotted a dent that he can't afford to fix. Apparently tone does matter down here. And speaking of Tracy, she's been busy. She's now on first name terms with Gwen, our next door neighbour who's featured in the first 2 episodes. You know Gwen, remember Gwen? She's the woman who could organise a military coup with nothing but a clipboard and a tin of shortbread. So Gwen has decided that Tracy should really get Paul involved in the community, which is Cornish for find something for him to do so he stops looking bored in the co-op. Then there's Neville, who is Gwen's husband. He's a lovely bloke, smashing fella. Looks like he's been trying to get a word in since 1987 and still hasn't managed it. Last week, Neville cornered me in the car park and asked if I'd ever considered bell ringing. Now, I thought he meant like charity collection, but no. He meant actual church bells. So I told him the only bells I've ever had dealings with are on an old fruit machine in Wigan. And even then I never hit the jackpot. And then there's Malcolm. Ah yes, Malcolm from the quiz night. Self-proclaimed local historian whose knowledge of history seems to have been gleaned entirely from pub beer mats. You know, he still insists that the Eiffel Tower is in Belgium. Yeah. He's already invited me to be on the next quiz team. I'm still in therapy from the last one. Then there's Libby. Ah yes, Libby, the human espresso shot from while swimming. If enthusiasm could be bottled, then Libby could fuel the national grid. You know, I can't look her directly in the eye for too long. It's like staring to the sun. She spotted me at the farmer's market the other day and yelled, "Paul!" so loudly I nearly dropped me pasty. I've never felt so judged by root vegetables in my life. So yes, episode 3 begins with me still finding my feet, or rather, finding that Cornish life is a lot like my feet. Slightly awkward, occasionally damp, and in need of better support. So, this week, what we had? Well, first of all, bit of sport. Let's talk about the cricket match. Yes, a bit of cricket. Now, for context, I'd played cricket before. Not very well, but enough to know that it's essentially a socially acceptable way for middle-aged men just to stand in a field for 6 hours wearing white trousers and trying not to spill tea down themselves. Now this, would you believe, was Gwen's idea, not Tracy's, Gwen's. "Paul, you'll love it," she said, as if, cricket was my lifelong passion and not something I once did at school purely to avoid cross-country running. Apparently, the village team was a man short. Now, I don't know if that was literally or spiritually, but either way, I got roped in. So, there I am out in the field because they won the toss and they batted first. Now, I'm standing somewhere called mid-off, which to me sounds more like an attitude than a position. And every time the bowler runs up, I'm trying to look athletic without actually moving. Because, let's be honest, cricket balls hurt. They're not like footballs. You know, the rock hard leather missiles specifically designed to find your most vulnerable bits. Then the captain, whose name is Marshall, shouts, "Paul, have a bowl." I thought, yes, skipper, I said. I thought, right, now then, here's the time now to become a hero. Let them know what you can really do. Now, I admit, I hadn't bowled in years, but I thought, all right, this is now my chance to shine. And by shine, I mean make it down the pitch without throwing my shoulder out. So, my first ball was, let's just say it was experimental. It bounced twice, rolled, and was politely escorted to the boundary by a very embarrassed 12-year-old batsman. I tried again. This one was straighter. So straight, in fact, it went directly onto the batsman's pants, and everyone shouted, "That!" like I just solved world hunger. The umpire said, "Not out." Probably because I still look confused about which way to kind of hold the ball right. Anyway, they batted. I think they scored 244 or something like that. So we had the tea break, as you do, very civilised. Now, cricket teas are sacred. They're like the United Nations of sandwich platters. So we all pile into the village hall, still in our whites, which by now look more off-grey, thanks to my enthusiastic dive for a ball that I didn't get anywhere near. Tracy, of course, is there. She's already there because Gwen had recruited her to help serve. This basically meant she was handing out scones like she was auditioning for Bake Off. And the spread, now, I have to say, belting. Sandwiches, I mean proper ones, with the crust cut off. And fillings that sound posh but taste suspiciously like cheese spread. Sausage rolls that could double as building material. Victoria sponge, so sweet it could make your teeth vibrate. And of course, the Cornish cream tea standoff. So for those of you not familiar, it is a war between jam first and cream first. So I just did both at once because I'm from Wigan and we're not bound by these rules. Everyone stared at me like I just spat on the Union Jack. Well, there you go. Still tasted the same. Tea over, it was time for the batting. Now, I have to say, I'm not bad with a bat. It's probably like, years of swatting flies in the kitchen has given me decent reflexes. But cricket batting is different. You're wearing pads like the size of mattresses and gloves so thick that you can barely feel the bat and a helmet that makes you look like you're auditioning for Robot Wars. But I felt confident when I went out. Opened the batting, of course, I volunteered. First ball, I missed it completely, I have to say. I just swished the bat, I hit nothing, and got an encouraging "unlucky" from Malcolm, who was umpiring with all the gravitas of a man guarding the crown jewels. I thought, right, just concentrate. Second ball, I made contact. Admittedly, the ball dribbled about 3 feet in front of me, but that's progress. I thought, right, I've got my eye in now. Third ball, oh, the glory, I connected. Boom, it went soaring. About 20 yards, straight into the hands of a fielder who looked like he'd rather be at home pressure washing his driveway. Out. Just like that, that was it. As I trudged off, Tracy shouted, "Well done, love," with the exact tone you'd use for a toddler who's just drawn a horse with 6 legs. We lost, by the way, badly. But apparently it was a good knock from me, which I suspect is village code for thanks for turning up and not trying. we'll call you. Anyway, after surviving the cricket debacle, I decided I needed a gentler sport and one that I played quite regularly. You know, something refined, dignified, where the biggest danger is a slightly awkward handshake rather than a leather missile aimed at your knees. Golf. Yes. Calm, measured, scenic. What could go wrong? Well, everything, really. So I arrived at the course with my own clubs. Yes, I'm that committed. Graphite shafts, perfectly polished irons, and head covers that makes me look like I've just stepped off a PGA photo shoot. Tracy, of course, came along. Not to play, of course. Oh, no. Just to observe and deliver a running commentary on how everything you do is wrong, Paul. So, the first hole, a par 4 with a gentle breeze, which in Cornish is for, hold on to your hat, your ball and your dignity. So I took my stance, give my backside a bit of a whittle and swung the club. The ball lifted beautifully and then promptly veered to the left and into some gorse bushes. A local farmer watching laughed so I nearly fell off his tractor. I wasn't deterred, got a 7 at that hole. Second hole, slightly downhill, slight wind, slightly more confident. Get the ball on the tee, take a deep breath, and I connect. Boom. It flies in a straight line, straight over the green, and straight into a bunker, which was the size of a small swimming pool. Tracy comments, of course. It's all about placement, love. What placement? I'm thinking about survival. Now, by the third hole, I'd already discovered 3 things. 1, Cornish wind is a violent entity. 2, locals have an uncanny ability to hit perfect shots even while sipping tea. And 3, bending over to retrieve a ball from the rough is a full body workout. Oh, and along the way, I have to mention, along the way, I encountered Gwen. She was walking the course. Her idea of exercise is a brisk 10-minute stroll while critiquing my swing. She came up, arms folded, and said, your shoulders are too tense, Paul. I said, Gwen, my shoulders are tense because I've just lost 3 balls to a bush the size of a small elephant. She looked unconvinced. Anyway, I plough on, we reached the 7th hole. Now this, at the 7th, is where it all clicked. So, ball on tee. I ignored Tracy's rolling eyes and swung. The ball soared, not spectacularly, but in a straight line and landed just near the pin. Yes! I raised my club like a conquering hero. Tracy muttered, beginner's luck. I ignored her. Now, by the 12th, I was on a bit of a roll. A decent chip onto the green, a putt that rolled in like it had been guided by divine intervention, and for one glorious moment, I was the golf king of Cornwall. Well, until I hit the 14th and the ball ricocheted off a bunker lip and rolled into a pond. Again. Anyway, I did the 18 holes, slightly knackered. The walk back to the clubhouse was instructive. See, I learned about Cornish hospitality, which apparently involves complimentary tea, biscuits, and a silent judgment about the state of your shoes. Tracy sipped her latte and said, not bad for your first proper round. I said, not bad. I practically invented a new hazard today. Well, we finished the day with a pasty. Mine slightly squashed by my golf bag, and I reflected on the sport. See, for my first game of golf in Cornwall, it was beautiful, frustrating and humbling. Like living here in general, I suppose. But at least for 5 glorious minutes, I felt like a proper golfer. After the golf, Tracy suggested that we do something to get more involved with the community. She's always going on about this. She's wrote me in for all sorts, and she's just not letting up. So when she says, let's do something to get involved with the community, which in Cornwall apparently translates to put on an apron and enter a baking competition judged by people who can taste a soggy bottom from 40 paces. Yeah. It's the charity bake-off, which was being held in the village hall. The same one were the pub quiz items, except this time, instead of beer pumps, there were like trestle tables lined with cakes and biscuits and tarts and the occasional overly ambitious showstopper. Now, I'm not exactly a baker, because in Wigan, if I wanted a cake, I'd go to Greg's, point at something and it'd be like, paper bag in 10 seconds. But here, oh no. It's all locally sourced flour and free-range eggs from chickens called Mabel. Yeah. Tracy, of course, as you can probably guess, Tracy took it very, very seriously. She made a triple layer Victoria sponge with homemade jam and cream that was so thick you could use it as mortar. I decided to enter my signature dish, the Paul Dawson Northern Slab Cake. Basically, a tray bake that's so dense it could be used as ballast on a fishing trawler. So we set up next to Gwen, who was doing a renowned lemon drizzle. She gave me like a bit of a pitying look and whispered, "Is that finished?" I told her it was artisan. She didn't look convinced. So then the judging began. Now, first up was Mr. Trevelyan, who was, in fact, I think he still is, the local postmaster, part-time fisherman and full-time scholar. Never seen him smile, ever, at all, and I've met him a few times. Anyway, he took a bite out of Tracy's sponge and nodded approvingly. Took a bite of mine and, well, let's just say I've seen friendly expressions on people about to reverse over a cat. Then came Margaret, who runs the WI. She leaned in close and whispered, "It's very substantial, Paul." And I'm fairly sure she meant inedible. Yeah, she moved on quickly, probably to avoid dental injury. But listen, here's the twist. Now, the bake-off had a public vote, as well as the judge's decision. And who do you think won the public vote? Yeah, that's right. Me, yours truly. Turns out the local builders love my cake. Said it was perfect with a brew and you only need one slice and you're full for a week. Tracy was furious. She's there with a delicate sponge and artisanal presentation, and I basically served up compressed sugar and cement mix and walked away with a rosette. Oh. Anyway, right at the end, they announced the winners. Gwen won Best in Show for her lemon drizzle. Tracy won Best Presentation, and I won Most Satisfying to Eat while standing in a field. Not an official category. I think they made it up on the spot, but I'm counting it. It still counts. Oh, and as we left, Tracy muttered, "Next year you're making nothing." But I could tell she was secretly impressed. Oh yes. See, in Cornwall you don't need finesse. You need staying power. And my cake could survive a nuclear winter. Now, one thing I've learned about Cornwall is that it's obsessed with King Arthur. And as you can tell by the title of this podcast, In Search of King Arthur, I do like all that business. King Arthur and Guinevere, Camelot, the Round Table, Merlin. I love all that. So she said to me, she said, "I've decided that we have a cultural day out." Her words, not mine, to Tintagel Castle, where King Arthur was allegedly born. Well, you can imagine. I thought, right, this is it. This is it now. After 5 or 6 weeks here, I'm finally going to do something that I actually want to do and a place where I actually want to go. So, Tintagel Castle. Right, first things first. Castle is just pushing it a bit, because when you say castle, I think of big stone walls and turrets and a drawbridge, maybe a moat with the odd crocodile. Tintagel, well, it's basically a load of very dramatic ruins perched on a cliff with a gift shop at one end and a cafe at the other. Still, I'll give them this. The views, incredible. You can see the Atlantic stretching out forever. But before you even see the ruins, you've got to tackle the bridge. Now, they call it a footbridge, but it's basically a nerve test suspended over a gorge. It wobbles in the wind. And there is a helpful sign telling you that strong gusts may occur, which translation is you might be blown off into the sea. Make your own jokes up there. Anyway, as we crossed, Tracy was taking photos for Instagram, all smiles and windswept hair, while I was gripping the rail so hard my knuckles were white. Oh, and behind us, I could hear this lad who was from the pub quiz, Darren, saying to his mate, "Hey, if Paul falls, get it on camera." I'm like, all right, cheers, mate. That's lovely, nice of you to think that way. Anyway, once across, you've got the ruins themselves. They've got little signs telling you what each bit used to be. A great hall, a chapel, a storeroom. But honestly, most of it just looks like interestingly placed rocks. I wandered into what was supposedly King Arthur's Hall and said, "Oh, it's smaller than I imagined," and some American tourist nodded like I was some kind of historian. And then, there's the famous statue. Oh yes, the huge, see-through bronze figure of King Arthur with his sword in hand, gazing out to sea, majestic, regal, inspiring, and surrounded by 6 people taking selfies pretending to stab him. Yeah. Tracy insisted on a photo of me next to him. "Right, Paul, look like a knight," she said. So I gave my best heroic pose, which, judging by the photos, actually makes me look like I just remembered I left the oven on. And the gift shops, oh my word. The gift shops were a real test of my patience, I tell you. Because you've got Arthur tea towels, Arthur fridge magnets, Arthur fudge, because apparently nothing says legendary king like clotted cream in a cardboard box. Tracy bought this King Arthur tea cosy. I don't drink tea from a pot, so I'm fairly sure it's just decorative. But on the way out, we stopped at Merlin's Cave, which is down on the beach. Now, this is a cave that's under the cliff, and it's only accessible at low tide, which thankfully it was. And it's moody, it's atmospheric, it's dripping with history. And at the far end, there's a bloke in a wetsuit who's clearly been wild swimming. And I said, trying to be, funny, quick as a flash, "Hey Merlin, you've changed." Yeah, he didn't laugh. So after that, we just sat outside the cafe with 2 Cornish pasties, watching the waves crash against the rocks. And I'll be honest, for all my sarcasm, it's hard not to feel a bit of magic about the place. There's something in the air at Tintagel. It could be history, it could be salt spray, but it does stick with you. Still, next time I want a medieval experience, I'll just go back to the cricket pitch. The toilets there are far more terrifying than anything in the Dark Ages. So after a few months down here, I've started noticing the subtle differences between Wigan and Cornwall. And by subtle, I mean absolutely glaring. Honestly. So for instance, let's just say fashion, right? In Wigan, smart casual means a clean pair of jeans, a polo shirt that's only been through the wash twice that week. In Cornwall, smart casual means you put on flip-flops instead of going barefoot. And that's for a wedding. You know what I mean? In Wigan, people dress for survival. Big coats, sturdy boots, something waterproof because, let's face it, it's always raining. But down here, it can be raining sideways and you'll still see someone in a linen shirt and shorts holding a surfboard like they're auditioning for a sun cream advert. I've tried blending in, right? I've made the effort. So I bought myself a pair of those, the cargo shorts everyone seems to wear now. But the problem is, they've got about like 37 pockets, and I keep losing my phone in my own trousers. I've actually had to phone myself to find it in public, while a bloke with dreadlocks and no shoes looked at me like I was the odd one. Cheek. And the housing, right? Housing is another one, because in Wigan, right, you can get a 3-bedroom semi with a garden, driveway, and room for a trampoline for the price of, well, a Cornish garden shed, basically. Now down here, estate agents show you a 2 up, 2 down with sea views, and by sea views, they mean if you lean out of the upstairs bathroom window and squint between 2 other houses, you might glimpse the ocean for half a second. I went to a viewing, right, in the next village, just to have a look. It was a lovely place. And when I asked if it had central heating, the estate agent said, no, but it's got a wood burner. I said, that's great, but what do I use for heat? Yeah, I mean, she didn't even flinch. It's like the way of life. That's what it really hits you, I think, because in Wigan, right, things happen fast. You pop to the shop, you're in and out in 5 minutes. You're back in time to put the kettle on before curry. In Cornwall, you pop to the shop and you're still there 40 minutes later because the woman behind the till is telling you all about a Granson School play in painstaking detail. I mean, lovely people, mind you, but I've had longer conversations buying a loaf of bread than I've had with some relatives. And do you remember I said, I think it was in the first episode, that the pace of everything is slower? Yeah? But, like in Wigan, if the bus is late by 5 minutes, there's a small riot at the bus stop. Well, down here, if it turns up at all, people treat it like a royal visit. Oh, look, the bus is here, how exciting. Dear me. Oh, and the pubs. The pubs, right. In Wigan, the pub, it's about football, beer, darts, and maybe a meat raffle if you're lucky. In Cornwall, the pub is about beer brewed in someone's shed, sea shanties, and a bloke called Giles who swears he's related to Poldark. And you nod along because frankly down here it's absolutely plausible. See, I've realised I'll never be fully Cornish. I mean, I can join in. I can appreciate it. I can even buy the overpriced artisan bread. But deep down, I'll always be that bloke from Wigan who thinks a pasty is a fancy pie without the gravy. Tracy says, though, that she says, I'm settling in. That's what she said. You're settling in. I mean, maybe she's right, I've learned to say that directly instead of later. I've got a favourite beach. And I've even started to think about £4.50 for a coffee is about right. But then I go back up north for a visit, and within 5 minutes someone hands me a pint for £3, a pie for £2, and I'm thinking, yeah, Cornwall's lovely, but Wigan will always do a better lunch deal. Anyway, that's life in Cornwall this week. Cricket, golf, barbecues, Tintagel, and the ongoing battle between my Wigan instincts and my Cornish surroundings. I am getting used to it though. I'm learning the lingo, slowing down my pace of life, even finding joy in paying a small fortune for a cappuccino that I've got to drink sitting on a wall. But the other day, a real test of my new Cornish ways came along. Tracy asked me, right, do you fancy a quick swim? And without thinking, I said, yeah, all right. 5 minutes later, I'm standing in the Atlantic wearing shorts with 37 pockets full of gravel, surrounded by wetsuit-clad locals while a dog tries to steal my towel. And I thought, this is it. This is the moment I've become one of them. Then a wave hit me in the face, the cargo shorts nearly came off, and I remembered, no, Paul, you're still from Wigan / Goulburn. So, until next time, I'll be here, adjusting to Cornwall, one sandy pasty at a time. I'll see you later.